I don't know whether you, but certainly I did. I know Sam Armstrong is with me in the studio. Just spent most of yesterday watching the extraordinary scenes in both Gaza and Israel as we saw the freeing of three Israeli hostages, three young women, Emily DeMaria, British-Israeli national, Romy Gonen and Doron Steinbrecher. It was unbelievably terrifying watching them being handed over by those masked gunmen in Gaza to the Red Cross, but then such relief when they were able to greet their mothers, greet the rest of their families, and to know that, well, although Emily DeMaria has lost two fingers after being shot on October the 7th when she was taken captive, and goodness knows what these poor three women have gone through over the last 471 days, but to know they are alive and to know they are safe and well. But some 94 hostages remain. It's believed that 2/3 of them could still be alive, but we simply don't know. So many other families are still just waiting with bated breath to hope that their family members may come out in the first tranche of hostages, 33 in total, we're told, in the first stage of the ceasefire, and possibly a next stage if we ever get to it. Well, one of those is Moshe Lavi. He's the brother-in-law of Omri Miran, who's a 47-year-old hostage kidnapped from his home at Kibbutz Nahal Oz on the 7th of October. Moshe, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
Can I just ask, first of all, what it's like for you and the other families of hostages who are still held captive to watch the footage of those three young women coming home? We've seen last November, we had some other hostages released. But what is it like for you to watch that? Does it give you hope, or does it sort of almost continue the anguish that you haven't got your loved one home?
First, I will say that seeing the scenes yesterday gave hope, gave joy to our hearts in Israel. We focused yesterday on the release of those three incredible women who went through so much in Hamas captivity. And this morning we woke up in order to resume our fight for the rest of the hostages who remain in Gaza's tunnels, including my brother-in-law, Omri. It doesn't contradict each other. The opposite, seeing that the deal is going through, that there is a beginning to the end for us, the families of hostages, is hopeful.
Well, I mean, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. You know, do you have any information about what has happened to Omri since? I mean, he's a husband, he's a father of two young daughters. I mean, just, you know, they were 3 years old and 1.5 years old, and his wife, thankfully, they all survived the attack. But he was taken captive. Have you had any information about him since October the 7th, 2023?
Yes, we had a few occasions where we received information about Omri. The first one was in November of 23, when one of the hostages was released on that first deal, if you recall. Reported they saw Omri in the tunnels. We also learned from them that Omri knew that Lisha and the girls survived October 7th because they were separated at 1:30 p.m. of that terrible day, and only at 5:30 Lisha and the girls were rescued. So he was able to learn it in captivity.
Oh, I think we've just the line is just frozen, Moshe. I don't know if you can hear us, Moshe. We'll try and get that line back up. But I mean, just coming to you, Sam Armstrong, because I know you've been very much involved in this cause as well. I mean, this thing for so many of the families, they're watching. Oh, apologies, we have got Moshe back. Sorry, Moshe, the line got stuck there. I mean, but you and the family have gone, you know, more than a year with no information about your brother-in-law. But you know, at one point, and again, we know, for instance, the three young women released yesterday, that some of them had been, held captive with other hostages in the tunnels. We know that some of the hostages have had, well, I mean, probably all, but we know some definitely have had horrendous experiences. We know about sexual abuse, about torture, about beatings, about threats, the conditions they've been held in, effectively treated as slaves. But we also know some have been held, in middle-class families' homes in Gaza, treated as just, as a servant, look after their children, clean their clothes and things like that. I mean, what do you, as a family member, what do you go through every day thinking about your loved one and not knowing what's happening to him?
Yeah, since the last Proof of Life in April that I discussed, the psychological warfare video Hamas release of Omri, We focus on the fact that he's alive, that we
Yeah.
can still bring him home and save him from captivity. We try and not think too much about his conditions, the conditions of his captivity, and definitely his mental and physical state. We will make sure to support Omri once he returns. But for now, we have to focus on the mission that is at hand, which is in Israel, push our government to make the concessions necessary, and then worldwide to push elected officials, including in Britain, to force countries that sponsor Hamas, Qatar, Turkey, Iran, to compel Hamas to release the hostages. That's our mission, and we have to focus on that.
Yeah. I've always said, if it was my family member, especially my daughter, any price is worth paying. But a lot of us who are fully behind Israel and the cause to get the hostages home and live in peace in Israel would still questioning whether this is a good deal. I mean, you'll know as well as I do, if Moshe can come out, fingers crossed, alive and well, there will be, perhaps 1,000 Palestinian prisoners back freed on the streets. Some of those, hundreds of those, will be convicted terrorists, violent men and women who have, killed dozens and dozens of Israelis for in the crimes they committed. Is that a price worth paying, do you believe?
There is never a good deal with a terrorist organization, especially not a genocidal terrorist organization like Hamas, whose sole goal is to eradicate the state of Israel.
Yeah.
But part of our ethos in Israel, and I don't know if people from other countries can relate in the same way. We have a national ethos of redeeming captives. It's also a religious command, Jewish command to redeem captives. And our social contract is based on it because we do serve in the military and we expect the state to come and rescue us if necessary. Yeah. I served myself for 6 years, and I always expected the state to do everything it can to bring me home if a terrorist organization or a country capture me.
Yeah.
But we need to make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes before October 7th. There were policies on the ground implemented by previous government and the current government that allowed October 7th to happen. We cannot allow Hamas to grow again. We cannot tolerate them on our border. And after all the hostages are released, the international community will also need to understand they cannot empower Hamas, they cannot transfer money to Hamas, they cannot transfer money to organizations like UNRWA, which allowed Hamas to embed in its organization.
Yeah.
We have to change the policies, and that's what we're going to push. But first, let's bring them home.
Get them home first. What do you make of so many people on the international stage? Whether it's UN, whether it's the Democrat American government under Biden and Kamala Harris, whether it's Keir Starmer here and our Foreign Secretary David Lammy, the criticism of the Israeli government, the succor, some would say, given to Hamas, marches even on Saturday, yet again, fortnightly marches ever since this. Before Israel went into Gaza, by the way, there were marches in the streets of Britain, pro-Palestinian, and people saying, oh, well, look at these hostages. They look fine. They look well fed. They're fine. They're smiling. They must be okay. What do you make of that reaction from so many people around the world?
First, I will say we as families appreciate both the work the Biden administration has done to lay the foundations and then the amazing work, incredible work done by Donald Trump and his team. We've met him several times over the past few weeks, and they are committed for the cause of releasing the hostages. I attended Mr. Lami's a statement to Parliament earlier this week. I was in the UK for meetings and then went to Paris. And I was encouraged by some of his statements, emphasizing the plea of the hostages. But then he returned to the mantras of the old, the policies of the old, which really embolden and encourage Hamas and their accomplices in Gaza and the West Bank. I'm very worried about how things will develop after the release of the hostages. Yeah. People need to understand this is not a peace deal. This is a hostage deal. We're releasing convicted terrorists for innocent civilians and soldiers who were kidnapped on October 7th.
Yeah.
We're compromising things because we value life, unlike our enemies, Hamas.
And that's the extraordinary thing. Hamas demanding, 30 convicted prisoners, convicted terrorists, or some of them, in return for, babies being released. It's quite extraordinary. Just finally, in terms of your brother-in-law, Omri, how his wife and their two, very young daughters, toddlers and babies, how are they coping? It's one thing for family members. It's another thing when it's your husband and your father that is missing, and you don't know what's happening to him and whether you're ever going to see him again. How do they get through every single day?
Yes, Lishai, my sister, is a true lioness. Since October 8th, after she was rescued, we all talked together. What are we supposed to do now in order to ensure Omri's release? And since then, we've been fighting together, being her shield. She's been advocating relentlessly here in Israel and in Europe and the US, doing everything she can to push relevant stakeholders, talk to the media and talk to the public.
Yeah.
That's very important. And we also make sure that the girls, Ronnie and Alma, get the support they need, get the sort of family love they need. But there is a gap in their lives. Ronnie and Alma call for their father every day. They wish him good night. They want to see him. And Lishai, although very strong, she also, of course, breaks at times, but we're there to pick her up because she leads us towards Omri liberation.
Well, please send our very, very best to her daughters, and to all of your family. We are absolutely rooting for you to get your loved one home. Moshe Lavi, brother-in-law of the hostage still being held, Omri Miran, thank you very much indeed for joining us.